They tried to silence me with fire. I'll bury them in court.
The lock clicked open like a coffin lid. I stood in the doorway of what used to be my apartment, watching strangers move through rooms that still held my ghost. The new tenant, a college kid with expensive shoes, stepped around me like I was furniture. "You the maintenance guy?" he asked. I nodded. Let him think that. Better than explaining I used to own this place before my wife sold it to pay for her new life with my former friend. 18 months in county lockup changes a man, not in the Hollywood way. No tattoos, no prison muscles, no enlightenment. Just a slow burn that never goes out. They said I took bribes as a city inspector. They said I falsified reports. They were right about one thing. I did falsify something. My faith in the people I loved. The kid disappeared into the bedroom, my old bedroom, and I walked to the kitchen window. Same view of the construction site across the street. Same yellow crane. Different company logo now, Monroe Development. Jack's Monroe's company. My phone buzzed. George Volta, the only friend who visited me inside. "Nathan, you out?" "Yeah." "Meet me at Murphy's. We need to talk." Murphy's bar hadn't changed. Same sticky floors, same smell of spilled beer and broken dreams. George sat in our old booth, looking older than his 53 years. His inspector badge was gone. Forced retirement after my conviction made everyone in the department look dirty. "You look like hell," he said. "Feel worse." I slid into the booth. "What do you know?" George pulled out a manila folder. "Everything you don't want to know." He opened it. Photos, bank statements, hotel receipts. "Melissa moved in with Jax the day after your sentencing, not a month later like she told people." The day after. I stared at a photo of my wife, ex-wife, coming out of Jax's penthouse in the same black dress she wore to my trial. The one where she cried on the witness stand saying how much my corruption had hurt her. "More?" George asked. "All of it? She sold your Mustang 2 weeks after you went in. Got 30 grand. Deposited it in an account she opened with Jax 3 days before your arrest." The beer tasted like copper. "Go on." "The house sold fast, too fast, below market. Guess who bought it through a shell company? Monroe Development. Give the man a prize." George leaned forward. "Nathan, there's something else. About your trial." "What about it?" "Your lawyer, the public defender who rolled over and played dead. He paid off his student loans the week after your conviction. $40,000. Cash deposit." The bar spun slightly. I gripped the table. "Who paid him?" "Still working on that. But I have an idea." George pulled out another photo. Amanda, Melissa's sister, the one who visited me twice in county, the one who said she believed in my innocence. She was shaking hands with a man in an expensive suit outside the courthouse. "Recognize him?" George asked. I did. Thomas Wright, the prosecutor who sent me away. "Amanda was feeding them information," George said. "Your defense strategy, what you planned to say, everything. She'd visit you, then meet with them." Something cold settled in my chest. Not rage. Calculation. "Where's Melissa now?" "Partner at Jax's law firm. They handle all his development deals. Very cozy." George finished his beer. "Nathan, what are you going to do?" I stood up. "Get a job." Monroe Development was hiring security guards. Night shift, construction sites, minimum wage. Perfect. I filled out the application under the name Nathan Hayes. Close enough to remember, different enough to slip past a casual background check. Fake references from George, fake address, fake life. The hiring manager barely looked up from his phone. "You start tonight. Park Avenue site, midnight to 8. The Park Avenue site was a 40-story tower going up where the old Morrison Hotel used to stand. I'd inspected the foundation work 2 years ago, back when I thought I was one of the good guys. Now I watched hard hats and cement trucks from a security trailer that smelled like coffee and failure. 3 a.m. was the perfect time to explore. The site foreman kept his office in a double-wide trailer near the street. Standard lock, easy to pick with the tools George had given me. Inside, permits, contracts, payment schedules. And something interesting, a folder marked Special Assessments, Bribe Payments, $50,000 to Councilman Blake for zoning approval, $25,000 to Inspector Rodriguez for overlooking foundation shortcuts. Another $30,000 to someone listed as JB for expedited permits. I photographed everything with a disposable camera. George's idea, no digital trail. Dawn was breaking when I heard footsteps outside the trailer. I slipped the camera into my jacket and moved to the window. A black sedan with tinted windows. 2 men in suits got out. One of them was Jax Monroe. He looked good. Prison had hollowed me out, but success had filled him up. Expensive haircut, Italian shoes, confidence that comes from winning. The other man was younger, nervous. They walked toward the main construction trailer. I couldn't hear what they said, but I watched Jax hand the younger man an envelope. Money. Always money. After they left, I walked the perimeter. 12-foot chain-link fence, razor wire on top, one gate with a padlock I could handle. But something bothered me about the foundation work. The concrete looked wrong, too thin in places, wrong aggregate mix. I'd written up violations for less. My phone rang. Unknown number. Yeah? Nathan Hale? A woman's voice. Who's asking? Amanda Cortez, Melissa's sister. We need to talk. So she was using her married name now. How domestic. About what? About staying out of trouble. Meet me at the Denny's on Route 9. 1 hour. She hung up. Denny's at 6 a.m. was full of truckers and insomniacs. Amanda sat in a corner booth, looking like she hadn't slept. Designer purse, nervous energy, guilt written in the lines around her eyes. You look different, she said as I sat down. Prison will do that. She ordered coffee with shaking hands. Nathan, I know you're angry. Do you? But what's done is done. Melissa's moved on. You should too. I studied her face. Same dark eyes as her sister, same way of tilting her head when she lied. How much did they pay you? What? To betray me. Was it worth it? Her coffee cup rattled against the saucer. I don't know what you mean. I have photos, Amanda. You and the prosecutor. You and Jax's lawyer. You feeding them everything I told you during those prison visits? She went pale. Nathan, listen. How much? It wasn't about money. Her voice cracked. They said you were guilty. They had evidence. They said helping them was the right thing to do. What evidence? The bribes, the falsified reports. They showed me documents with your signature. I leaned forward. Did you ever think to ask if those signatures were real? Amanda's eyes went wide. For a moment, she looked like the kid who used to make me sandwiches when I worked late. Then the mask slipped back on. You're scaring me, she said. Good. You should be scared. I stood up. Tell Melissa and Jax I said hello. Isaac Reyes worked at First National Bank, Commercial Loans Department. Every Tuesday and Thursday, he ate lunch at Tony's Deli on Market Street. Always the same table, always the same turkey sandwich, always checking his phone for sports scores. I watched him for a week before making my move. Excuse me, are you Isaac Reyes? He looked up from his sandwich, suspicious. Yeah. Do I know you? Nathan Hale. I used to work with the city, inspector's office. Recognition flickered in his eyes, followed by something that looked like fear. I remember you, he said. You got arrested. I got framed. I sat down without being invited. With your help. Isaac started to stand. I put my hand on his wrist, not threatening, just firm. Sit down, Isaac. We're going to have a conversation about Melissa Hale and the loans you approved for her real estate purchases. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out a folder George had prepared. Bank records, loan applications, property transfers. You approved 3 loans for my wife between my arrest and conviction. Total value, $400,000. Properties she bought using forged documents with my signature. Isaac's face went gray. I didn't know they were forged. But you knew something was wrong. The income statements didn't match tax records. The property appraisals came from the same company that was buying the properties. And you approved them anyway. I leaned closer. Why? He looked around the deli like a trapped animal. I needed the money. Gambling? He nodded miserably. Basketball. I was down $40,000. Jack said if I helped him out, he'd cover my debts. And now? Now I owe him $60,000. With interest. Perfect. Isaac, I'm going to make you an offer. Help me prove those signatures were forged, and I'll help you with your Jack's problem. How? By destroying him. 3 days later, Isaac delivered. Photocopies of the loan applications with my forged signature. Handwriting analysis would prove they were fake. The loops were wrong, the pressure too light. Melissa had always been terrible at forgery, but I needed more than fraud charges. I needed to break them completely. George called at 2 a.m. "Nathan, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "Someone tried to break into my apartment tonight, two guys with baseball bats. I wasn't home, but they left a message on my mirror." "Stop digging or start bleeding." "You okay?" "For now, but they know we're onto something, which means we're close." I looked out the window of my motel room. Empty parking lot, neon sign flickering. "George, I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Take a vacation? Florida, anywhere? Just get gone for a week?" "What about you?" "I'll be fine. I know how to hide." I hung up and started packing. Time to move closer to the enemy. The apartment was a dump in the warehouse district, but it had what I needed. A clear view of Monroe Development's office building and a landlord who accepted cash and didn't ask questions. I set up across from their parking garage with binoculars and a camera with a telephoto lens. Old-fashioned surveillance, the kind that couldn't be hacked or traced. For 3 days, I watched their routine. Jax arrived at 9 sharp in a black BMW. Melissa came 20 minutes later in a silver Mercedes, probably bought with money from my house. They left together most evenings, sometimes to restaurants, sometimes to Jax's penthouse. On Thursday, something changed. A police car sat outside the building for 2 hours. Detectives' plates. Then a man in a cheap suit went inside and didn't come out for 4 hours. When he left, he was carrying a box of files. That night, I watched Jax pace in his office until midnight. Friday brought more visitors, men in expensive suits who looked uncomfortable, a woman with a briefcase who stayed for 10 minutes, then Amanda looking scared. I followed her when she left. She drove to a storage facility on the south side, paid for a unit, and loaded 3 boxes from her car. Whatever was in those boxes, she didn't want it found. Saturday, I made my move. The storage facility was old school. Combination locks, no cameras in the storage area itself. Amanda's unit was numbered 247. The lock was cheap, the kind you could open with bolt cutters and 5 minutes of privacy. Inside, financial records, legal documents, and something that made my blood run cold. A video camera and a stack of DVDs labeled with dates, the dates of my prison visits. I loaded everything into my car and drove back to the apartment. The first DVD made me sick, Amanda smiling and nodding as I told her about my legal strategy. Amanda asking leading questions about my relationship with contractors. Amanda recording every word. The second DVD was worse. Amanda and Jax in what looked like his office, watching my recorded confessions and laughing. Melissa joined them for the third video, the one from a week before my sentencing. "He still thinks I believe in him," Melissa said on the recording. "Poor bastard doesn't know I've been planning this for 6 months." "What about after the trial?" Jax asked. "After the trial, he's nobody, just another con who couldn't handle the real world." They all laughed. I watched the rest of the DVDs in silence. Evidence of forgery, bribery, conspiracy, enough to put all 3 of them away for years. But prison wasn't enough anymore. I wanted them destroyed the same way they destroyed me. Completely. Daryl Lowe was Melissa's law partner and the weak link in their operation. George's research showed gambling debts, a messy divorce, and a harassment lawsuit that his firm was trying to keep quiet. I found him at Churchill Downs on Saturday, betting the ponies and losing badly. He was drunk by the 3rd race, loud and sloppy by the 5th. "Daryl Lowe?" I approached him at the bar. He turned, squinting through bloodshot eyes. "Yeah? Do I know you?" "Nathan Hale. I think we have mutual friends." The name sobered him up fast. "Jesus, you're supposed to be in prison." "Got out early for good behavior. Funny thing about prison, gives you time to think. Time to remember things that didn't make sense during my trial." I ordered a beer and sat next to him. Like how my wife suddenly had access to legal documents that should have been confidential. Documents that only someone in her law firm could have provided. Daryl tried to stand. I grabbed his arm. "Sit down. We're not done talking." He sat. "Here's what I know," I continued. "You gave Melissa privileged information about the city's investigation into my department. Information she passed to Jack so he could position himself as the clean alternative when contracts went up for bid. You can't prove that. Actually, I can." I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo of his signature on a document authorizing release of confidential city records. "This is from the prosecutor's file, the one they thought they sealed." Daryl went pale. How did you get that? Friends in low places. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What do you want? Access to Melissa's computer. Just for one night, do that and this document disappears. And if I don't, I finished my beer and stood up. Then Monday morning, the state bar gets an anonymous tip about a lawyer who violated client confidentiality to help his partner commit fraud. How's that harassment lawsuit going to look when you're facing criminal charges? Daryl stared at his losing ticket. She'll end me if she finds out. She'll end you anyway once you're no longer useful. At least this way, you might survive. Sunday night, Daryl let me into the law office. Melissa's computer was password protected, but she'd always been predictable. Her birthday, then Jax's birthday, then the date they'd started sleeping together. Bingo. Her email account was a goldmine. Correspondence with shell companies, property transfers, payments to witnesses who'd lied at my trial. But the real prize was in her deleted files, a video she'd recorded the night after my conviction. Testing. Okay, this is for posterity, I guess. Nathan Hale, the man I married, the man I destroyed, is finally gone. 18 months wasn't enough, but it's a start. By the time he gets out, everything will be mine. The house, the money, the life we built together, and he'll have nothing. She raised a glass of champagne to the camera. Here's to new beginnings and old endings. Here's to never looking back. I copied everything to a flash drive and deleted the access logs. Daryl was waiting in the parking lot, sweating despite the cold. Are we done? He asked. For now. But Daryl? You might want to update your resume. Things are about to get very ugly for Monroe Development and anyone associated with it. The State Bar of Pennsylvania took anonymous tips seriously, especially when they came with supporting documentation. I mailed them copies of the evidence on Monday, requesting a full investigation into Melissa Hale's professional conduct. Tuesday morning, Melissa got the call. I watched from my apartment as she paced her office, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing wildly. By noon, she was screaming at Daryl. By evening, she was crying in Jax's arms in the parking garage. Wednesday brought reporters. The story was simple. Prominent attorney under investigation for fraud and professional misconduct. The details were devastating. Forged signatures, conflict of interest, possible collusion with her romantic partner's business interests. Melissa held a press conference Thursday morning. I watched it from a diner across from the courthouse, coffee growing cold as she claimed innocence and painted herself as the victim of a vindictive ex-husband with a criminal record. Nathan Hale is a convicted felon who can't accept responsibility for his actions, she said, tears streaming down her face. He's trying to destroy my reputation because he can't rebuild his own life. Perfect. She'd just given me everything I needed for phase 2. I called the reporter who'd covered my original trial, Jennifer Walsh, from the city paper. She remembered me. Hard to forget the inspector who went from hero to villain in 6 months. Nathan Hale, she said when she answered. I heard you were out. Jennifer, I have a story for you, a big one. About your ex-wife's ethics investigation. That's old news. About how she framed me for crimes I didn't commit. About forged documents, bribed witnesses, and conspiracy to commit fraud. About how the real criminals are still free while an innocent man spent 18 months in prison. Silence on the other end. Then, what kind of proof are you talking about? The kind that wins Pulitzer Prizes. You interested? We met at a truck stop outside the city. Jennifer brought her digital recorder and a skeptical expression that melted when I started showing her evidence. Bank records proving the timing of Melissa's payments to witnesses. Handwriting analysis of the forged signatures, video recordings of Amanda's betrayal, the deleted confession video where Melissa celebrated my destruction. Jesus Christ, Jennifer whispered, staring at her notebook. This is huge. It's bigger than huge. It's systemic corruption involving a city inspector, a prosecutor, a defense attorney, and multiple witnesses. It's the story of how justice gets bought and sold in this city. Why bring this to me? Why not the FBI? Because the FBI moves slowly, and I want these people destroyed now. Public humiliation first, then criminal charges. I want their world to burn before the law even touches them. Jennifer nodded slowly. When can I publish? Give me 3 days to get somewhere safe, then burn it all down. Friday night, someone tried to end me. I was walking back to my apartment from the corner store when the car jumped the curb. Black sedan, tinted windows, engine roaring as it aimed for my chest. I dove behind a parked truck, feeling the wind from the car as it smashed into a storefront. The sedan backed up, tires screaming, and came at me again. This time I was ready. I rolled under the truck as the car slammed into its side, metal crumpling and glass exploding. The sedan's engine died. I crawled out the other side and ran, staying low, using parked cars for cover. Behind me, I heard doors slamming and footsteps on concrete. "Find him," a voice I didn't recognize. "Jax wants this finished tonight." I made it to my apartment building through the back alley. My hands shook as I unlocked the door and ran up 3 flights of stairs. Inside, I grabbed my go bag, cash, fake ID, copies of all the evidence, and headed for the fire escape. Too late. The front door splintered inward as I was climbing out the window. "He's gone through the window!" Another voice, younger. "Check the fire escape." I dropped to the alley and ran. My car was parked 2 blocks away, but they'd be watching it. Instead, I headed for the subway station, mixing with the Friday night crowd, keeping my head down. The train took me to the other side of the city, to a motel that rented rooms by the hour and didn't ask for ID. I paid cash for 3 nights and locked the door behind me. My phone had 17 missed calls, 3 from George, 2 from Jennifer, 12 from unknown numbers. I called George first. "Nathan, thank God. Someone torched my apartment tonight. Everything's gone. You okay?" "I'm alive, barely. They came while I was walking my dog. If I'd been inside..." His voice shook. "Nathan, what did you do?" "I poked the bear. Now it's trying to eat us. What's the plan?" "Survival. Then revenge." Jennifer answered on the first ring. "Nathan, where are you? Someone tried to run you down tonight. I saw the wreckage." "How did you..." "I've been following the story. Jax Monroe's people have been asking questions about you all over town. They know you're coming for them." "Good. Fear makes people sloppy. Or dangerous. Nathan, maybe we should..." "No backing down. You published that story Sunday, like we agreed. I'll handle the rest." "What if they come after me?" "They won't. You're press. Killing a reporter brings too much heat." I hoped I was right. "Just make sure the story runs." "Everything depends on it." Saturday morning brought news that made me smile for the first time in weeks. The FBI had raided Monroe Development's offices, seizing computers and financial records. Someone had tipped them off about the bribery evidence I'd found. Jax was in handcuffs on the evening news, claiming innocence and conspiracy. Melissa stood beside him, her lawyer's training showing as she said nothing and looked stoic for the cameras. But I could see the fear in her eyes. Sunday's paper hit the streets like a bomb. Jennifer's story covered the entire front page, framed how a city inspector became the scapegoat for systemic corruption. The photos were devastating. Melissa celebrating my conviction, Amanda recording our prison conversations, Jax laughing about my destroyed life. By noon, the story had gone national. Cable news picked it up, social media exploded, and protesters gathered outside the courthouse demanding justice. My phone rang, unknown number. "You son of a bitch!" Melissa's voice raw with rage. "You destroyed everything!" "No," I said. "You destroyed everything. I just made sure people knew about it. I'll end you. I swear to God, I'll do it with my own hands. You already tried that." It didn't work. Silence. Then, "What do you want?" "Justice." "Bullcrap." "You want revenge?" "Same thing in this case." "What will it take to end this?" I looked out the motel window at the city skyline, at the lights and life I'd been exiled from for 18 months. "Nothing you can give me, Melissa. You took my life, my reputation, my freedom. You made me into nothing. Now it's your turn." The courtroom was packed for Melissa's ethics hearing. Reporters filled the back rows, cameras lined the walls, and spectators crowded the gallery. I sat in the front row, watching my ex-wife's career die in real time. The evidence was overwhelming. Forged documents, bribed witnesses, conspiracy to commit fraud. Melissa's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim of my vindictive manipulation, but the video recordings destroyed that defense. When they played her confession tape, the one where she celebrated my imprisonment, the room fell silent. Even the judge looked disgusted. "Mrs. Hale," the ethics board chairman said, "do you have anything to say in your defense?" Melissa stood slowly. She'd aged years in the past week. Her expensive clothes couldn't hide the defeat in her shoulders, the defeat in her eyes. "I have nothing to say," she whispered. "Very well. This board finds you guilty of professional misconduct, fraud, and violation of client confidentiality. You are hereby disbarred from practicing law in the state of Pennsylvania, effective immediately." The gavel fell like a gunshot. Melissa collapsed into her chair, sobbing. But I wasn't done with her yet. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed like vultures. I pushed through the crowd to where Melissa stood with her lawyer, trying to get to a car. "Melissa," I called. She turned, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, she looked like the woman I'd married, vulnerable and lost. Then her expression hardened. "What do you want, Nathan?" "To ask you a question. Was it worth it?" "Was what worth it?" "Destroying me. Destroying us? Was 18 months of freedom worth losing everything else?" She stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed, a broken, bitter sound. "You want to know the truth, Nathan? I never loved you. Not really. You were safe, stable, boring. Jax was exciting, dangerous, alive. When the opportunity came to trade up, I took it." The crowd around us went quiet, sensing the electricity in the air. "You want to know if it was worth it?" Alyssa continued, her voice rising. "Yes. Every moment of those 18 months was worth it. Every night in Jax's bed was worth it. Every dollar I spent of your money was worth it. I'd do it again in a heartbeat." She stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume, the same one she'd worn on our wedding day. "But you know what the best part was, Nathan? You trusted me. Right up until the end, you believed I was on your side. You looked at me with those puppy dog eyes and asked me to wait for you, to believe in you. And I smiled and nodded and visited you in that gray little room, all while planning your destruction." The crowd was dead silent now. Even the reporters had stopped taking notes. "You were so easy to manipulate," Melissa said. "So eager to believe that someone still loved you. Amanda played you perfectly, feeding you hope while recording your every word. You never suspected your own sister-in-law was working against you." Something cold settled in my chest. Not rage. Relief. "Thank you," I said. "For what?" "For confirming what I already knew. You're exactly as worthless as I thought you were." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. "Recording? Active? 17 minutes and 32 seconds. "What?" she started. "That confession you just made? It's being live-streamed to every major news outlet in the city. Congratulations, Melissa. You just admitted to conspiracy, fraud, and perjury on live television." Her face went white. Around us, the crowd began to murmur, then buzz, then roar. Phone cameras appeared, reporters shouted questions, and police sirens wailed in the distance. "You bastard," Melissa whispered. "No," I said. "Just someone who learned from the best." 6 months later, I sat in a diner reading the morning paper. The headline made me smile. Monroe Development founder sentenced to 12 years. Jax had tried to cut a deal, offering to testify against Melissa and Amanda in exchange for reduced charges. It didn't work. The jury convicted him on all counts: bribery, conspiracy, fraud, and attempted murder. The judge threw the book at him. Melissa got 8 years. Amanda got 5. The prosecutor who railroaded me got disbarred and indicted. My original defense attorney was facing ethics charges. The city had offered me a settlement: full reinstatement, back pay, a formal apology, and $2 million in damages. I took the money and declined the job. Some bridges once burned shouldn't be rebuilt. My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "This isn't over." I deleted it without responding. Empty threats from empty people. George joined me at the diner, looking healthier than he had in months. The insurance money from his burned apartment had let him buy a small house in the suburbs. "So, what's next?" he asked, sliding into the booth. "I'm thinking about starting my own business, construction consulting. Help people avoid the kind of problems that cost me everything." Sounds boring. Good. I've had enough excitement for one lifetime. George ordered coffee and studied my face. "You know they'll get out eventually. Melissa, Amanda, maybe even Jax if he behaves himself." "I know. Doesn't that bother you?" I thought about it, watching steam rise from my coffee cup. They're already serving their real sentence. They have to live with what they did, with who they are. Prison's just geography. That's very philosophical. Prison teaches you things about patience, about the difference between justice and revenge, about what really matters. And what really matters? I looked out the window at the city I'd served, the city that had betrayed me, the city that had given me everything back and more. Starting over. Building something better than what you lost, George nodded. To new beginnings, then. To new beginnings. We drank our coffee in comfortable silence, two survivors watching the world wake up around us. Outside, construction cranes reached toward the sky, building tomorrow on the ruins of yesterday. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Jennifer Walsh. Nathan, I just got word. The governor's announcing a task force on judicial corruption next week. They want you to head it up. Not interested. Think about it. You could make sure this never happens to anyone else. I watched a young couple walk past the diner window, holding hands, laughing at some private joke. They looked the way Melissa and I used to look, back when I believed in happy endings. I'll think about it, I told Jennifer. But I already knew my answer. I'd spent 18 months paying for crimes I didn't commit. I'd spent 6 months getting justice for crimes I couldn't forgive. Now it was time to live for something more than the past. I paid the check and walked out into the morning sun. Behind me, the diner's neon sign flickered and died. Ahead, the city stretched out like an unwritten story, full of possibility and promise. I had work to do.